All right, Marty, looks like we're all in.
Okay, fantastic. Hello, everyone. Good to see you today. Um, this is our last class, and we'll start by the same ritual we've followed the last 3 weeks, which is to put in the chat a win that you've had for the last over the last week. It can be something from work or personal life, something big or small, just so we can acknowledge those and celebrate. Um, so thank you for your homework. I appreciate that you all gave a good bit of effort, and I know that there were quite a few comments of like, "Wow, this was more work than I thought it was going to be." So thanks for sticking with it. And as I've said before, the homework is so important in this class for you to get the most out of it, right? It's one thing for for us to be hearing content from me, and it's another thing altogether to actually translate that into your own business or what you're planning for building your business. So, and I'm still recovering a little bit from COVID, so I apologize in advance for my still scratchy voice. But let's hear from y'all. Was there anything that you have questions about, or any comments or thoughts about creating the proposal for your business? And just unmute yourself and ask anyone. We'll have some time at the end of this class to have a little bit of Q&A. So if there are things that you want to pick up from other classes or from the content from today or your homework, we can do that. But let's go ahead and jump into what we're going to be covering today, which is setting up the framework for your business, basically thinking about your office needs, about the legal structure of your company, licensing and certifications, insurance and accounting needs, your team, and software and apps. And just to remind you where we are in the course of the 4 weeks, we have now got to a place where we're really connecting the dots. So, and to do the thinking that we're going to be looking at today, you really will need what we have covered, which is, getting clarity on your business model, who your ideal clients are, what services you're going to provide and such, how you're going to manage your workday, and having a solid proposal. So knowing what your scope of work is, what your deliverables are, what your fees are, what your time frame is. And so far in this course, it's really been structured to help you think about setting your business up in a way that reflects your unique experience, your education, your passions and expertise, and the time that you have available. And today we're going to be looking at things to consider when building the scaffolding to support that unique business. This is a handout for today, which is touches on the different elements that we'll be looking at: basic needs, licensing, certification, insurance, legal structure, your professional team, software and apps. That's on the platform. So I want to name a few things before we dig into some of the meat of today's content. First is that the information that I'm sharing today is a solid general guide, but always think about what you're doing through the lens of your own business model and seek competent professional advice when that makes sense. I use professionals to advise me on legal things, insurance, accounting, And they've been well worth the investment for me. So get good support folks in place. And my advice is to have a good business attorney before you need one for a specific concern, but to help you look at your agreements and proposals and contracts, however you're organizing that, and help you think about how you want to set your business up from a legal perspective. And we'll speak about that just a little bit later on in today's class. Second, there are differences in business requirements and needs based on where you live and work. So be aware that different states or towns are going to have different tax requirements. They're going to have different licensing requirements. They're going to have different permitting needs, different forms that need to be completed. For example, different states are going to charge sales taxes in different ways. Some of them tax based on services you provide, like design or maintenance. Others don't. And of course, there are different tax rates in different towns and states. So just bear that in mind. And there are different requirements for landscape contractor licensing. They're going to have different building codes and regulations and different requirements for when you need to get things like permitting to move soil. Some municipalities are going to require permits for that sort of thing and are not going to require permits for that sort of thing. And then some will require you to get a permit if you're going to move 500 square feet of topsoil. So keep that on your radar. Some states are going to have a limit on things like open-ended time and material allowances in a contract. So just always check with your local requirements to make sure that you have set up the way you're running your business so that you are in accordance with what the regulations and the laws are. So I'm going to give you the basics of what you should have on your radar as a possible need in your business framework. You aren't going to need everything I mentioned, probably, but my intention is, within the constraints of this course, to give you a summary overview so you can research on your own what you're going to need for your unique business. And on my website, you'll find some additional resources that might help you if you want to take a deeper dive in some of these topics. But today, we're going to take a high-level look at the basics of establishing your business, branding and a professional presence, tools and systems for daily operations, creating your business plan, marketing and client acquisition, financial planning and stability, licensing and certifications, possible business requirements that are unique to landscape designers, insurance, legal structure, and your professional team. So first, let's start with some details about establishing your business. So for your business, you are going to want a business name and you're going to want to register that. So think about how you want to select a name if you haven't already that is going to reflect your brand and also is going to be legally available to you. You're also going to want to set up a business bank account and a credit card. Separating personal and business finances is really crucial. And having these separate accounts is the easiest, most straightforward way to do that. You want to create a business structure. So whether you're operating as a sole proprietorship, whether you're an LLC, and we'll have more information on that in a few minutes when we dig into business structure just a little bit more. You're going to want a business plan, and this is basically a document that is going to outline what your goals are, what your objectives are, the strategies that you're going to implement to achieve those goals and objectives, and the operational details of your business venture. So basically a roadmap for how you're going to structure your business. You want to understand employer requirements. If you are going to hire employees, you want to be sure that you understand licensing and permitting, and we'll have a little bit more information on that a little bit later on. And also just systems and processes in your office. So you're staying organized and you've got the templates that you need, filing systems, managing your day, things that we've talked about in earlier classes. So branding and professional presence, your brand is how your clients perceive you, and having a strong professional identity will really set you apart. So you need a master marketing plan for how you're going to reach your target audience, and that's your ideal client, and how you're going to stand out amongst other people who are doing similar things, right? So your competition. And I offer a masterclass on this on my website for those who want to take a deeper dive into marketing in a landscape design practice. But basically, your marketing strategy should include design of a logo and clarity about what your visual identity is. So your fonts, your colors, those types of things. You want to have a good website. Think about the essential information that you want to include and what pages are important to have, and whether you can do this yourself or if you need professional help. There are lots of templates here on platforms like Wix or Squarespace. I hire that out because I'm not great at navigating that sort of thing, even though there are easy templates, easy, whatever, so it's relative, but there are templates that you can use, and a gorgeous and well-designed layout for a landscape designer with a site that is photo heavy and is just going to go a long way to conveying your brand as a landscape designer. So website is a must. You're going to want to set up your social media accounts and optimize your profiles. So generally, I suggest that you pick 2 platforms, 3 at the most, that are going to resonate with your ideal client and post on those regularly. It's better to concentrate what you're doing than spread yourself super thin on multiple websites. You're gonna want to get business cards, and they're the old-fashioned paper kind, and also modern alternatives like a QR code or digital cards. Again, how those are designed are really important. So pay attention to design details, because as design professionals, people will consciously or not make judgments about you as a designer based on um, some of these branding items like your business cards. You want to consider getting a professional email address and branded templates for proposals and invoices and presentations, just to keep a consistent professional presence. And email marketing setup platform, either through your website platform or through MailChimp or ConvertKit, something like that, that'll allow you to send out newsletters and nurture leads. Wait, hold on, I skipped a slide. Nope. Tools and systems for your daily operations. Choose the right design software if you're going to be using software. And I know some folks will be doing most of their work by hand, and that's fine. It's not going to be the most time efficient way, but it's a time honored way, right? And a beautiful way to do it. But if you're using software, be smart about what you're what you're investing in, whether it's Vectorworks or AutoCAD or SketchUp or PlantMaster, whatever. Your accounting program, so that you've got a financial management program like QuickBooks or Wave or FreshBooks, so you can track your income and expenses and invoicing. Your office space is very important. You want to create a space that has a productive setup, and whether that's home-based or if you're sharing office space or renting office space outside your home. Project management systems or client relationship management systems, things like Monday.com or Asana for managing projects and keeping up with things like timelines and who's responsible for what. File storage solutions, whether it's Google Drive or Dropbox, where you're going to keep all your digital information, and how are you going to make sure that that's backed up carefully. Time tracking. You can use software for that, or do it the old-fashioned way, like with some version of the homework from last week. And business peers, so mentors and colleagues, are very important. They have been key for me building my confidence, my business, my job satisfaction. It's really been very important, and I encourage you to reach out and find ways to stay connected with other people whether it's with industry organizations like APLD or ASLA or local landscape design groups, or attending workshops or symposiums to meet others who are doing similar things. You're going to have a clear business plan that helps define what your goals are, what your services are, and the financial expectations. This would include getting clear what your goals are, so long-term goals and short-term goals, getting a mission statement clearly articulated and your core values defined. And I did put a core value exercise in the first week of resources. So if you missed that, go back and have a peek at that. I just pulled that from another class that I do and thought that might be helpful to you. So getting clear on what your business stands for and how you're going to differentiate yourself based on that information. What are your services and your pricing structure, what you're going to offer, consultations or design only or full service design and build. And then how are you going to price those services? Are you going to charge by the hour or a flat fee or package pricing or percentage? Your financial projections, so estimating what your revenue is, what your expenses are, and what your profitability goals are. Do a SWOT analysis, and that means looking at what your strengths are in the business, what your weaknesses are, where your opportunities are, where your strengths are. We actually do as an aside, we do in our design summary, that is part of our garden design process. We create a document for our clients that has some paragraphs around what we hear that they're asking for. This is not the proposal. This is after they've already signed the proposal, but the document is a way for us to be sure we're all on the same page and did we miss anything. And sometimes the clients think of something after they have the initial design meeting, and it's just a great way to spark some more creativity and just be sure we're all clear about what direction we're taking. But in that document, as part of it, we do a similar kind of SWOT analysis where we look at the project and we think about what are the strengths of the existing landscape, what are the concerns that we have about the landscape, what are the opportunities, and what are the constraints. So it's a version of the SWOT. And I find that it can be a really helpful framework when you're thinking about building a business or starting a design process or making decisions in your business. So back to the business plan. You want to know what your competitors look like and how you want to understand what their market positioning is. What are they doing? And an operational budget so that you can manage your cash flow effectively. Marketing is key. You want to attract the right clients, right? This is why you've done the work to identify what your ideal client and project is. And in your marketing, you want to have an overall plan so that you're choosing strategies that are really aligning with your business goals. You want to have a networking and community engagement plan. So attending industry events, joining local groups, collaborating with other professionals. Again, your website, and you want to be sure that you have the search engines optimized or SEO addressed, and because you want people to be able to find you, right? Google and online listings, making sure that you have things set up to improve your search visibility, basically. Social media and content strategy, thinking of how you can create valuable content that's going to attract the kind of clients that you want, whether that's before and after photos or blog posts or visual tutorials. An email marketing campaign is a huge asset for small business owners like us. It takes, when you have a mailing list that you have control over, sending out content that is going to be helpful to them, that is a really different approach than being on social media. and there's a place for it for sure. There's a place for Instagram and Facebook and other platforms, but you are then reliant on the algorithm of those platforms. And if that platform goes down, or if there's something weird that happens, a lot of that is out. I mean, all of that really is out of your control. So maintaining a strong email marketing presence is a really great way to stay connected with people that are, potential clients. And paid advertising options, whether that's on Google or Facebook or Instagram, depending on what your ideal client is. Financial planning and stability, you have got to understand your financial health for long-term success in your design business. So you want to set up a business budget and manage your expenses so that you're tracking costs and planning for your financial needs. You want to understand your financial statements, so your P&L report, your profit and loss report, your balance sheets, things that are going to give you pieces to the puzzle of how well your business is doing. Managing your cash flow, and part of that is planning for seasonal fluctuations in income, which is just part of the game for, part of the reality for folks who work in our industry. I want to think about how to price for profitability. So ensuring that your rates are going to cover your expenses and provide a profit for you while still remaining competitive. Bookkeeping and taxes, you obviously want to stay organized for tax season, and you may need a professional to help with that. And that's one of the questions to ask at the beginning, right? Is when and why would I need to go ahead and hire a bookkeeper or an accountant to help me to keep things straight? And I will say, having a bookkeeper for me also has been a great investment, and I kind of see that as she's really good at what she does, like the same way I'm really good at what I do. And I could probably piece together a reasonable bookkeeping system and track that, but my time is way better spent to do design work and be billing for that at my hour, at my billing rate as a designer, than it is for me to spend those hours trying to, kind of pick through a QuickBooks program to figure out what needs to happen and make sure that taxes are filed on time and that sort of stuff. Retirement planning is important to think about, and also business savings. How are you going to make sure that you are taking your profitability and being smart about that, either with paying you as a payout, or by saving it for future business financial needs. So I'm going to stop here for just a moment to see if there are any questions. That's a lot of information that I kind of plowed through quickly, and we're still going to talk about licensing and certifications and some insurance information, accounting and legal structure and that sort of thing. But of these pieces that I've touched on, are there questions or comments?
There's a couple questions in the chat. Someone
Okay.
is asking if you have a preferred design software that you use, and also how do you price an hour of service?
Mm-hmm. So design software, I'm assuming that means CAD work for doing the landscape design. So I'll answer it from that perspective. If that's not what the question's about, then whoever asked the question can jump back in the chat and clarify. I'll tell you what we use. Well, I'll tell you the history in my office, and I'll tell you then what I use now. So back a long time ago, when I first took garden design classes, I learned by hand. So for probably the first couple of years that I was working, I was doing all my drawings by hand. And I think that was actually great practice for me, because learning to draw on the computer is a little different than learning to draw by hand. not that you can't get a great product if you jump right to the computer, but I do think there's a place for handwork. It became very obvious to me that that was not going to be a profitable or efficient way for me to create designs. And so from there, I started using Shoot, which is a program out of England more focused on plant selection and plant maintenance. And but they were starting to develop and I've forgotten what they call it. Maybe it was, I think it was like a planning tool or something, but it's very, very basic computer assisted planning that you could do 3D drawings on. It was limited in what you could create for your plant icons and how you drew textures and things like that. It was very limited. But in certain circumstances, I think Shoot and the product that they have now is is definitely improved. I haven't looked at it in probably a year or so, but they're kind of upgrading that all the time, it seems like, and can be a great choice for folks, especially who are doing predominantly planting design and not needing to, provide construction information or are not able to provide construction information. But I moved from that. Well, before I used Shoot, I actually tried to learn Vectorworks. And I was really very frustrated because Vectorworks could basically like build the world. It's very robust. And so I tried that and ended up going back to Shoot for I don't know, a couple of years or something. And then we've been using Vectorworks for quite a few years. The landscape architect in my office, in the office that she was in before mine, was using AutoCAD, and she was able to translate pretty quickly her AutoCAD skills into Vectorworks. But I really appreciate that that it is so robust and that there's a lot of flexibility about what you can do with your with your drawings and 3D capacity and the visuals, the worksheets, that sort of thing. We've had really good success with that. But there are other programs that do similar things, like Dynascape is one that a lot of landscape designers will use, and it's packaged a little bit more for a design and build situation where there's more kind of client management, or at least last time I looked at it, had more client management capabilities. Trying to think if there's any other kind of tidbit or bit of information I could share about that. Hopefully that answered the question. And then what was the other one? The other question, Emerson?
The other question was, how do you price an hour of service?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a complex question that we could spend like a 40-hour week on looking at, because you need to be able to effectively price your services. You need to know, what your expenses are. You need to know something about your competition and what your marketplace is going to bear, and 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 you need to take into account things like, what your experience is, and what your education is, and uh, the the most people will take an approach that is some hybrid of getting all of those details. Not everybody. Some people will literally do all that, to the dollar, and really kind of pick apart through a systemized way of looking at expenses and what profit you want to make, and sort of spreading that onto a pricing structure. Most people will, take the best information they have, especially early in their career where they don't have a lot of history of what their expenses are going to be. But you can do some projections about that, and you know, and try to understand best you can what others in your area are charging with similar experience, and that's often limited, like how much you actually can know that. But you do get senses by going to conferences and going to symposiums and interfacing with other folks who are doing similar things. You can gauge pretty good, sometimes pretty good idea of what they're charging and how they're charging if um, if you're willing to give some information and find someone who you know who finds that kind of reciprocal sharing of information helpful. But it's complicated. And then when you try a rate or a way that you're charging, it's a matter of tracking them and seeing if it works. And if you're looking at your financial metrics and it's still not making sense in terms of covering your expenses and still having profit left over, then you have to reassess it. Other questions, Emerson?
Yes. So there are a couple. How do you find out about local or non-local conferences?
APLD is a great place for that resource. So they have a calendar and it is a nationwide calendar. So I'd start there. Um, Local extension agents for like I don't know if every state is like this, but many states are, and certainly North Carolina is, where the agricultural extension offices are through the land grant college. And they also here have a calendar and put out a lot of information like that. Every state, I think without exception, has a landscape contractors conference. Those are generally more broad than just design work. But it's a great place to network. And especially with larger conferences, you can pick and choose with topics that are going to be more relevant to you. Some of the places, like I actually, in fact, I'm leaving in the morning to speak at the Illinois uh, State Conference, and they're like 5 tracks running the entire 3 or 4 days of the conference, and it's everything from like how do you manage rainwater in residential properties to how do you transport plants most safely to and on and on. I mean, just there are lots of different things. So for me, there are a lot of pieces that are not relevant, but the meeting people is a benefit that's really significant for those state conferences. Um, And I mean, there are places that do really good continuing education, like Mount, and a lot of it online, like Mount Cuba and New Directions in the American Landscape. Um, so, kind of, I'm trying to think of who else is off the top of my head that does really good online, beside in Longwood, obviously. Okay, that's the list. At least it's coming to me off the top of my head. If I think of something else at the end of class, I'll throw that in, because it's very important to keep that to keep your own well full, so that you have it's a way to manage stress. It's a way to encourage creativity and just the connection with other professionals, as I said earlier, has been huge for me. I would not be operating my business in the way that I do, with all of its whatever. It's not like it's the most perfect business, but I have benefited from other people's wisdom and in just many, many, many ways. And so I would encourage you also to join organizations like APLD, which is the Association of Professional Landscape Designers, and ASLA, which is the American Society of Landscape Architects. Those organizations are really great way to plug into other people who are really serious about their professionalism and about elevating the profession of landscape design or landscape architecture.
And there's one more question. Can you describe some of the project management systems that you have used in the past?
Mm-hmm. So, the one that I have used most is Monday.com, and it allows you, and I think most of them work on kind of this basic notion with certain bells and whistles that one will have that might be more appealing for one reason or another than a different one, but they help you map out what you need to do by being really clear about what you're. I mean, it's in some ways it's a little bit of like the time tracking or time blocking that we talked about, where you can list your what needs to be accomplished, and then you can break those down into smaller goals, and you can spread that across a timeline. You can bring in other people in your office to collaborate with you on the management of the projects. And mostly I use it for design work. So tracking, when we need to have a conceptual design done for one project, or when we need to have um, information together for an estimate for another project, so that we can look at a block of time and gauge how we're spending our time so that we're on track for meeting those kind of deadlines. Um, so it's just, and I mentioned this last week, it can be really helpful when you're drawing up your proposals that if you can't get to a project for 3 months because your time has already been blocked for the next 3 months, telling your client that, or potential client that, because you don't want them to think you can start next week and then get all excited and come to find out you're not available for a much longer time. And that just is groundwork for people being frustrated. I mean, that's a foundational people being frustrated. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into some more content. We'll come back to questions later. Licensing and certification. There are a lot of different ways that you could be licensed or certified, or that you are required to be licensed or certified. So what might you need? This is going to depend on the kind of services that you offer and where you are. And again, some things are going to be required to practice and others are going to be optional. And a lot of this is going to be state related. So look in your own area to see what the options are or requirements are. So first is a state landscape contractor's license. So if your services involve construction or installation work where you are running a crew, or you are bringing in as subcontractors other companies or artisans, whether that's to build hardscapes or retaining walls or water features or whatever, you may need a contractor's license, or you may need to call in an engineer. So requirements for obtaining a contractor's license is going to be different from state to state. And you may have to pass an exam or provide proof of your experience or education, and get references or obtain a surety bond or insurance. This is often tied to the cost of the work that you do. If in North Carolina, for example, if you do any job over $30,000, you are required to get a landscape contractor's license. So many of the folks in Asheville who are doing just planting do not need to have a contractor's license because they're not doing planting jobs over $30,000. There is a certification through APLD. Again, the Association of Professional Landscape Designers. This has an educational requirement. You have to have 3 or more years of professional landscape design experience. And you need to submit 3 design packages for peer review. So that includes showing competency in hardscaping, demolition, planting, that sort of thing. The American Society for Horticulture Science offers members some opportunities for credentials like a professional horticulturist, associate professional horticulturalist, practicing professional horticulturalist. So, these things like having a plant professional certification or horticultural certification, in some places a native plant professional. And again, these are going to vary from state to state. Like there's a Chesapeake Bay watershed certification. There's certification in stormwater conservation and management, in native plantings, again, that sort of thing. Your if you're a landscape architect, your licensing for that is going to be through the state that you're in. And then there are also certifications or licensing in specialized areas like irrigation or lighting, pool installation, pesticide application, sustainable practices, and water conservation designs. And most of these types of licensing or certifications are going to require that you have yearly continuing education fulfillment. So that's another great reason to seek out online and in-person continuing education, not just to build our own confidence and professionalism, but also to satisfy some of these requirements. So just important to research what's required in your local area and what's relevant to you in terms of what kind of practice you have as a landscape designer. Some other possible business requirements, business tax registration, sales and use number, that kind of thing. Many jurisdictions require businesses to register for and pay various taxes. So sales taxes, use taxes, local government, business taxes. So make sure to research those and comply with all of the local tax obligations that are applicable to your landscape design businesses. A federal employer ID number from the IRS, which you're going to need as a business owner. City or county business licensing requirements. Most jurisdictions are going to require businesses, including sole proprietorships and partnerships, to get a general business license or a permit to legally work within that city or county. And you also need to think about, are there zoning regulations or other business related requirements that might come into play in terms of how you're setting up your practice. Again, you want to register your name for your business. If you're doing business as or otherwise known as a DBA, that is when you're doing business as an assumed name. You want to make sure that you have that properly certified or documented, or whatever license you're going to need for that. Sometimes there are environmental impact permits needed, grading or excavating. If you're working near wetlands or bodies of water, these can come into play. And then land use permits related to steep slopes or particular zoning requirements. So depending on the scope of your project and the location of your business, you may need to have some land use and zoning permitting to ensure that your activities are complying with the local regulations and setbacks and other kind of zoning restrictions. Insurance. There are quite a few different types of insurance that you might need as a landscape designer. And it's impossible to generalize insurance needs here because they're so specific to business models and where you practice. But here are some basics of what they are and what they might cover. First is business liability. So if you have a storefront or you interact with clients, This is for accidental injuries or property damage and could cover things like your lawyer's fees or your court costs, your settlements or judgments. Commercial property, this is if you own a building or an inventory or equipment, and this insurance would possibly protect you against fires or storm damage or burst pipes, vandalism or theft, and would possibly cover repair or replacement of something that was lost or damaged due to an incident like that. Workers' compensation is for if you have employees. It covers employees that are injured or get illnesses on the job. So this is required by law in certain circumstances and could cover medical bills or disability benefits or death benefits. Employee liability, which is a coverage that helps pay the business owner's costs related to a lawsuit or disagreement resulting from an employee's work-related injury or illness. So generally, workers' compensation is going to help employees pay their medical bills and expenses, and employees' liability insurance that's going to help the employer with legal costs related to any kind of worker medical issues. Commercial vehicle, obviously, if you own a vehicle, would cover injuries or business damage caused by that vehicle, so damage or theft or vandalism. Professional liability or errors and omissions. This is to cover design and build mistakes, things that are inaccurate, something that's misrepresented, or any kind of negligence that has caused an injury or some kind of a financial loss for someone. Disability, in case a business owner or employee is unable to work due to an illness or injury away from work, right? Because workers' compensation is providing for work-related disabilities. Surety bonds, this is a contract between a client, a business, and the insurance company that is basically going to guarantee the insurer is going to reimburse clients if the business fails to deliver whatever they say they're going to deliver. As a contractor, if you're a landscape contractor, you're likely going to need a bond for your license. And sometimes people will ask for completion bonds, which is just assuring that the job is going to be finished. An umbrella policy is an extra layer of protection on top of all of these other policies for any kind of costs that go beyond your liability coverage. So it's really a complement to other liability policies or other insurance policies when those policies basically have reached their limits. Cyber liability for businesses that handle credit cards or other personal data in case there's a breach of that information. So my advice is to work with a financially sound insurance company and get an agent who is familiar with the needs of a landscape design professional and get their advice on how to create a custom package for you based on your unique needs. And these are often not, well, I wouldn't say often, these are sometimes folks who are not going to be the same agents who are providing coverage for your personal needs. Good question to ask yourself is, will my insurance likely cover me if I lose in court? And nobody wants to end up in some kind of a legal situation, but that's where insurance can really come in handy. So again, get a good professional insurance agent that's familiar with the needs of our industry. With your business model in mind, you want your agent to review your coverage as well as your contract and your proposal to make sure you're considering all the possible needs that you have for your practice, and that the insurance agent knows what your risks and exposures are to help you figure out what kind of insurance you might need. And sometimes you are required to purchase certain types of insurance by law. So, and a good insurance agent is going to tell you that. Some insurance policies require that you have an audit of your company to determine final insurance premium amounts. So, for example, workers' compensation policies will require an audit of your employee hours and sometimes a separation of the tasks performed by employees. This is a place where electronic timekeeping can be really helpful. You want to confirm insurance coverage for your contractors if you are working with contractors by asking for a certificate of insurance, or otherwise called a COI, and you can expect clients to ask for that as well from you. Always reach out to your insurance agent if you suspect a need for coverage. It's best to ask about it and see if there's anything in your policies that might be helpful to you. And I actually have an example of that in my business where um, I I didn't foresee something falling under an insurance coverage, and by the time I figured that out, it was past the possible time for me to actually use that as a resource. And it was just, money lost and a headache that was bigger than it needed to be, when my insurance company could have provided advice and some, probably some financial benefits as well. The legal structure of a business refers to what form or organization under which it's going to operate. So it defines how the business is legally recognized, how it's owned, managed, taxed, and regulated. For each legal structure that there a certain set of characteristics, advantages, disadvantages, and implications for liability or taxation or ownership or management or some kind of regulatory compliance. So when you're thinking about your legal structure, there's several things to to consider. Think about how much control you want, uh, the funding needs that you might have, what kind of flexibility needs you might have, and what is the complexity of each structure, which we'll talk about in a second, and what is your exposure to liability and tax implications. So you want to set your legal structure up to ensure that it's organized in a way that is going to maximize your legal protection, maximize your tax efficiency and your potential for growth, and also comply with anything that is a regulatory requirement. And you also want to think about how your structure impacts the ability that you have to undergo changes in your ownership. So selling your business or transferring it to a family member or merging it with another company. So for my business, I just to share what my structure history has been. So at first I was a sole proprietor who had a doing business as name, and then I created an LLC, and I have elected to be taxed as an S corp. So, and again, I did this under advice from my business attorney and accountant. So, seek advice specific to your situation. There are 5 basic legal structure options for landscape design practice. The first is a sole proprietorship, which allows you to have complete control. It's a super easy startup. The tax reporting is simple. It allows for a good bit of privacy, and in fact, probably most landscape designers start this type of structure. Partnership, which is also fairly simple startup, with a few tax forms, shared finances, combined knowledge. So when you've got more than one person in a partnership, obviously you've got more financial assets, and also more resources and experience to bring to the situation. And there's several different kinds of partnerships. You can have a general partnership, which is where partners have somewhat equal roles in operation and financial obligations. You can have limited partnerships, which are usually more investor oriented. You can have limited liability partnerships, which are similar to general partnerships, but the partners are more shielded from the negligence or misconduct of other partners. And this is something that's often favored by professionals like designers or architects. A corporation, which is an entity that is independent of the owners. Corporations generally have higher risk profiles and are trying oftentimes to raise capital. There's more liability protection, more of an ease of business continuity, and you can raise capital more quickly because you can still sell stocks and shares. There's some particular tax exemptions and some other benefits like health insurance and retirement plans. An S corp, which is a liability protection of a corporation, along with some added tax benefits. There are a limited number and types of shareholders, and it does reduce the taxation. So you're not subject to both corporate taxes and business profit and losses passed directly to personal income taxes. Again, these are questions that I'm giving you, or this is information I'm giving you a very general overview. So you just have a base so to know what questions to ask of legal advisors that can tell you what you need to be thinking about with your particular business. LLC is a limited liability corporation, or LLC, which is a hybrid structure between a partnership and a corporation, and is going to allow you to protect your personal assets, but also pay a lower tax rate than a corporation. And generally for businesses that have medium to high risks, and as a member, you aren't liable for debts or lawsuits against the company personally, and you have some tax advantages. There are some things that you have to kind of jump through, like you have to fill out paperwork with your state's Department of State. So each of these different structures has certain benefits and certain pieces that are requirements, and it's a matter of figuring out what you want your business to do for you and what you're comfortable with in terms of risks and how that fits within a legal structure. And having a strong professional team is key to a successful business. Here are some folks that you might consider hiring: a bookkeeper, tax accountant, a business attorney, a financial advisor, a business coach who can give you some tailored advice, an objective perspective about helping with some of these strategic planning questions, and improving efficiency and productivity, and helping you really build a long-term sustainable company that is going to be enjoyable and profitable for you. A website designer, graphic designer, marketing consultant, office manager, assistant, either a virtual assistant or one in person, a photographer. It's good to have some expertise on your phone, right? I actually took just because we always have our phones with us, and I took a class online that was an iPhone photography class, and it was really helpful to me. There's no substitute for a professional photographer. That's hard to replicate, but these days our phones can really take exceptional photos. And if you have a little bit of understanding about the features, that can go a long way to making your photos look really nice. And we can't have a professional photographer at every time we go to the job site, or every time we finish a job. So, but taking pictures is important. Documenting your work is very important. Software, accounting programs like QuickBooks or HoneyBooks or FreshBooks, computer design programs, which I already spoke to, task and project management programs, which I already spoke to, scheduling apps, social media apps that will help you with posting content on platforms, plant material applications like Plant Master, which is an excellent design platform for organizing your plant material for projects, or Shoot, which is the company that I mentioned earlier out of England. Graphic design programs like Canva or Adobe or Procreate, time tracking tools like Simple Excel sheet or T-Sheets or Toggle Track, which I shared with you last week or week before last. That's what we use in my office. Some of these offer free versions that might be good enough for your business. and at least it will let you try something out. Although I've found sometimes those are so kind of bare bones that you don't get the full understanding of what that program can do for you until you actually get a subscription to it. A few book resources. The two E-Myth Revisited is a really good one, and actually there's a specific version of that is for landscaping companies, not designers, but landscape contractors, and then Small Businesses for Dummies, which is just a lot of good basic information. The SBA has a lot of resources, and SCORE, which is basically a network of retired business people who are providing guidance for folks. So your homework is to create a list of your business needs for your unique business. Even if you already have this in place, make a list of everything, and then, prioritize for yourself what you want to get done first to take your business to the next step or level. Okay, so this has been, again, meant to be a foundation for thinking about what you need to have in place, possibly for your business scaffolding. And I'll stop now and ask, we'll hold some space for questions, and it can be questions about other classes that we want to tie up since this is our last meeting, or questions about your homework. As students who have finished this course, you are eligible to be part of a membership that I have, which is a monthly meeting of folks who have already taken this course or a similar course like this with me. So we all kind of speak a similar language. And it's a really great cost-effective way to basically get group coaching and some of the networking that we talked about, and access to resources. And I have a forum, so it's a lot like the discussion that we share on the Longwood platform, where folks ask questions and upload things and get asked for feedback. And we just keep kind of digging into different topics that are helpful for running a business that we we enjoy. And again, it's once a month. It's on third Tuesday at 4:00. And other ways to stay in touch with me, I'm on Instagram, and I have got some resources on my website if you're looking for deeper dives into other things. I've also got some templates for my office that you might find helpful, and book suggestions, and I do a weekly newsletter. So if you haven't already signed up for that, would love for you to sign up for it, and we can stay in touch. And I also have a free guide to creating systems in your landscape design practice, so you can grab that on my website as well. But I'll just open the floor. I'll say thank you for being part of this last month, for your enthusiasm and your commitment to doing the homework and showing up. I love being in the presence of others who really take building a business seriously. And so thanks for that. Okay, so I'll stop there, and I'm imagining we have questions.
I'm curious. So, at what stage in your business were you like, all right, I'm hiring an office manager?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't actually have an office manager now, but I did maybe like maybe 2 years into it. I was also running a crew at the beginning, I was running a crew of folks, a planting crew. And then I got my contractor's license, and I was managing kind of soup to nuts the whole kit and caboodle And I had to have a person who could help me manage the logistics of that, because I was doing all the design work and all of the site visits and being involved in the design during construction. Then I had my what prompted me to quit functioning as a landscape contractor was my foreman unexpectedly quit for a good reason, but it was in the middle of the summer, so like in the basically the middle of our season. And I was like, holy cow, that's going to be tricky to find somebody in the middle of the season. And it really forced me to take a hard look at what I was good at and what parts of my business were more profitable, what I was enjoying. And I ended up finishing out that year, and we finished all the projects we had started. That was super important to me. I was exhausted by the end of it because I was doing more than one job. And that winter, I really looked carefully at everything and just decided I'm really good at the design piece, and I don't need to. I can put systems in place where I know the planting will be done the way that I'm expecting it to, and then I can have a role in plant selection and substitutions, and also in plant placing. That was really important to me and was hard for me to envision giving up. But I've figured out ways to do that role without being the contractor. So at that point, I didn't need an office manager, and I actually had hired both an office manager and a part-time bookkeeper. That was a W-2 bookkeeper. It was actually an employee of mine. And now, when I kind of went through that reorganization, now I have just gotten really good at contracting out whatever I need. So I have a bookkeeper that I contract out with. I have a web designer that I contract out with, and an assistant that I contract out with as needed. And there are pros and cons to doing anything right in your business. When you have a dedicated office manager for 35 or 40 hours a week, then you always have that person. But the flip side is that if then you don't have them, then you don't have them. It's a big hole. Okay, I hope that helps.
Thanks, that's helpful.
It's a trick knowing when to hire people. And I think we mentioned this last week, that this is one benefit of doing the time tracking that you all did for that week, is seeing where your time goes and where there are things that you don't need to be touching. That is really an important question to be asking ourselves as business owners. Do I need to be like I said earlier, like learning QuickBooks and doing that sort of accounting, bookkeeping kind of thing? Do I need to learn how to manage Wix or whatever it is? There are there are ways that it doesn't make financial sense for us when we could be billing out at a certain rate to spend those hours inefficiently doing things that don't require our touch, or even things that are related to the design work, um, that don't require our touch. So like in my office, Sarah and I, and we've been working together for 4 years, so we have a really good sort of cadence and respect for each other, and understanding of just how what are the systems set up in my practice. But there are a lot of things now I don't touch that I did 5 years ago. And it's way better for me because either she's more skilled at it, or she's more efficient. And I still have my hand in the design work, I just am not doing all the pieces that I once was.
I just have one question. You say, try to be like, this is like for being a professional. Well, if you're not a landscape architect, how do you become a professional?
Hmm. Well,
Can you
you
become a professional if you're not that?
say the last sentence again.
If you're not a landscape architect,
Mhm.
what you said take courses or what would you take to consider yourself as a professional, or can you? If you're
Yeah,
good credential.
absolutely. Right. So, landscape designers are considered professionals, and it's different than landscape architecture in that there are a lot more requirements around what you can and can't do if you are or are not a landscape architect. And a lot of that is written in law. And you can say that you can't say you're a landscape architect unless you have been to landscape architecture school, but you can say that you are a landscape designer, really, with having no schooling. But courses like, the courses that are offered at Longwood, the design and planting certifications there, you can get certifications through, I mentioned APLD, which is the most the I don't know how I would say that. It's the one that's most recognized nationally as a landscape designer, and so that's a fairly comprehensive package that you have to put together after a particular length of experience and type of experience. So that's another credential. Community colleges and universities also have where some will have landscape architecture programs, others will have landscape design programs, and sometimes they'll be focused on sustainability, design and sustainability, or they're focused more on horticulture or more on like construction and hardscape design. But there are definitely degrees in that. And I think the other piece to consider is just the confidence that some of these certifications and educational milestones help us build, right? And I'll give an example with when I became a landscape contractor, there was like this big thick book that you studied for the exam, and just going through the motion of going through that entire book and thinking, okay, I already know like 80% of what is in this book. And then, realizing what is the 20% you don't know, and then knowing that if you need to figure that out, you will. I mean, some of the things in this book I've never used, but having a sense of what is the expectation for a certain level of professional is really helpful to say, I have that. I have that knowledge base. Okay, next. And I'm seeing in the chat, like there's some good thoughts on places to get coursework. And
This is a
Emerson,
question.
do we have okay, go ahead.
I
have a question.
Uh-huh.
On the for the homework, when you go to grade our homework, will you include information on how we can improve upon, say, our proposal or something else, or ask us questions to kind of think about, just to kind of give us some more insight into how we can improve upon what we've presented?
For the proposal,
Just to when you go to grade the homework, will you provide more insight into how we can improve upon the homework assignments and stuff like that?
Yes, yeah. So I am responding to those homework assignments on the platform. And really the way I see those, I said this at the beginning of the class, these homework assignments are for you, to go through your thought process of how, what are the pieces that you want in, for example, the proposal, or what was the experience like for you to go through the time management practice that we did, more for your reflection. But I am like, when I see something in a homework that that sparks a thought on my end, I'm definitely putting that in there. But really, I'm just looking for you all to have done it right for your own kind of integration of what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking, this is a hobby for me, but to have some insight that maybe there's something that I didn't think about or I might have missed, having somebody else that's been in the business that knows, like, hey, you probably want to check out, like, think about this that maybe I didn't address, and that take the proposal as an example. I just would love that type of feedback if you're able to provide it.
And if you have, so yeah, I hear that. And if you have a specific question, you definitely write that to me. And like, if people are writing questions in the homework, I'm trying to answer those. If they haven't asked questions, I'm not going through them with with the super fine eye about it. More, I'm looking at generally what folks are doing, and if something just jumps out at me. So yes, if something jumps out at me, I'm writing that back.
Oh,
And just so you know, I
And
really appreciate all that you like this course and everything that you've brought to light. So thank you.
I was thinking on that. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
This is on the same vein as that. I was going to ask you, was there one person that did an excellent job on the proposal that you could share it with us and say why it was good? That would help us realize, oh, I didn't even think of that. You know what I mean? That would help us, everyone else, to sort of say, that's to get your insight, and then we could see why it was good.
So, Emerson, will you just confirm for me that everybody can see everyone else's discussion? I've been assuming that.
Yes, yeah. So if something is posted in a discussion board, you should be able to go back and view that.
Right. So what I would suggest is going through everyone's responses in their proposal, and you can see, comments that I have written back about different pieces, or ways that folks are sort of framing what their thought process was. So one of the things that I've loved about having these types of forums with students is that you really can learn from each other. And there's some good, there's some good examples of proposals and pieces of proposals. And again, everything that we do is going to be specific to our particular business. So I don't see myself coming back and saying, oh, like this is a proposal that is like, rising to the top because it's the best, because everybody's proposal is going to be specific to their business. And really, you're the only one who understands all the different components. So kind of reading through all those things and picking some different things, so that you, can kind of glean what's most relevant to you. I know sometimes it can be really frustrating because you just think, I would just love somebody to give me the answer, right? Like, I just love somebody to tell me, like, what should your proposal look like? And that, I think, is not the best way for folks to put together the pieces of their business, because I think getting the information and getting the the overview of the things to think about, and then then translating that into what is your particular situation, and then you have that practice and that understanding to shift it as things shift, because they will. You know, what my proposal looks like right now is very different than what it looked like 10 years ago.
And that's one last question. I like that idea, 'cause I did, not this time, but the time before, I had time and I went through everybody's, I gave comments. This is Kathy. I gave comments to everybody.
Yes, I saw that you did that, Kathy. I love that.
Well, I was trying to kill time and I thought, why not read the next one and the next one? And then I thought I would love to be able to have their contact information, because um like right now I have a situation where I'm trying to remove 2 acres of oriental bittersweet vine, you know? And if I had the contact information to everybody in this group, I could say, hey guys, I have this situation. I've never done this. I have these bids and I'm trying to convince people we have to get rid of them, like something like that. That's what I'm dealing with. But I don't have a platform to reach out to people in our group. I don't have their
Mhm.
email. I just have their little name in the little square. That
And I think I'm sorry for interrupting you. Did you finish?
I'm finished.
Okay. I think, I'm not sure, Emerson, if you and I had this conversation or if this was with Tim or what, but I think there was some advice on how to share emails with each other. Does that sound familiar,
Yes,
Emerson?
so what, and I'm not sure if we've already done it for this class or if this was for a different class, but we do have the option, we could make a discussion board for sharing contact information, and then anyone who feels comfortable and does want to share your email address and your name, you can post it in there. So if that doesn't already exist for this class, I will let our online learning team know, and I'm sure they can get that added.
That would be fantastic. At least I think everyone would appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and back to, it's just, for me as a landscape design professional, these kind of contacts and collaborators and networks, it's just invaluable. I think particularly because many of us work by ourselves, right? And we have a home-based business, or if we're working in an office outside our home, it's oftentimes not within a firm or another larger practice. So I think you're onto something about figuring out how, who your people are and how to stay connected to them and use them.
Thank you. That'd be wonderful.
Emerson, do we have any other questions in the chat? Just kind of.
I think most of them have been answered. The only one that has not been directly addressed, someone was asking, do you have any recommendations for design programs that are less expensive than Vectorworks, which can cost $1,500 a year?
Vectorworks is expensive. So the Shoot program that I mentioned is less expensive, and it has the plant management component to it. And also, let's see, hold on, I'm going to go back to the slide and see if this will jog my memory. Real-time landscape architect is another one that I've heard people use that is less expensive. I don't have any experience with that one. Dynascape, I think, is probably a comparable expense. Again, it's got a different collection of features, a little bit more kind of like project management, business oriented. And there's actually a man in England who, and if you're interested in this, you can send me an email and I can try to find his name. But I've met with him before and he's super lovely, and he he has devised a system for using SketchUp for landscape design, and SketchUp is quite a bit less expensive than Vectorworks. It's not as comprehensive as Vectorworks. And somebody's writing Idea Spectrum. I'm not. That's not what I'm familiar with. But that'd be good to check out. And those are CAD, computer assisted design, and the plant material, the planting design, not the drawing, but organizing your plant palette. Plant Master is a really great resource for that. We use that with every project, and you can, I don't know, does anybody here already use that? Raise your hand if you do. I'm always curious, because it's very, for horticulturally oriented folks, I think it's really a helpful thing. But we can organize areas of gardens. We basically create a website for each client through the structure Plant Master already has in place. So you can upload your own photographs. You can alter your maintenance instructions to your particular location, and what your style of teaching your clients about. And then there are lots of graphs that you can pull from there, like bloom time and different, like, water requirements, that sort of thing. So Plant Master is a great resource, and it's very reasonably priced. And you can print things, so you can create the website for your clients so they can go into it themselves and sort of dig into some of the information. And then you also can print out documents, if that's more kind of what your business model is.
I'm going to jump in here. I can't find the hand raised icon, but I've been using Plant Master, and it's pretty amazing. They also will give you a free tutorial, and because I'm a student in the classes, I asked and they gave me a student rate. So it's like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was pretty reasonable. It was under $100 for a year with a
Oh,
student
wow.
rate. Yeah.
Okay.
So just say you're a student, but I've found them very responsive.
Yes, they're lovely people, for sure. Okay. Well, that seems like a good stopping point then. Reach out to me if you want to stay in touch, or you have particular questions. I'd love to stay in touch on my newsletter list. So consider signing up for that. And again, it's great to be with y'all. I appreciate your interest and excitement about learning these things.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you for your time and putting this all together. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Marty, I have a real
Good
quick
night.
personal question after, if you could stay on for a minute.
Absolutely.
Thanks. I am heading out of town tomorrow, and I